Hi, I'm Corey. Welcome to Creating with Scraps. Today's project is a woven ladder pocket, and it is based on something I saw or I learned from Gail Augustinelli. Now, she shared this a while ago, and I've had this in my to share stack for a long time. She shared this basic construction of using 4 rectangular scraps of paper, and making pockets, and she puts tags in them. Super simple. She said she got it from somebody else, but I don't remember who she got it from. But I definitely got it from Gail, and I've used it quite a bit. But I also altered it, and that's what I'm going to show you today to give another option. Like I said, I call it the woven ladder pocket because you're weaving strips of paper, cardstock, coffee dyed paper, whatever you've got, and you're making a series of pockets. Now, this is the second video I've done with this simply because I was moving the camera to show you something and I hit the emergency alert button and that shut it off. So it kind of made me laugh. But this is the one I made to show you that shows that if you choose to use 4 strips, it gives you a total of 8 pockets. And the benefit to this is, well, this one won't match, but you'll get the idea. And I'm going to put a sample in my rectangle book or my idea book in the rectangle section. You can put it down on your page, in the middle if you had a wider page to be a belly band, but you can also glue it down on 3 sides. So you've got the 8 pockets or more or less, whatever you need, on top, as well as a big pocket to go in the back. Beauty of this is if for some reason you've got something upside down on your page, or if there's an image that you're not really fond of, this covers it up really well, and it still allows the beautiful paper to show through. Most of my samples use 4 simply because of the size journals I make, but you can use more than 4 or less than 4. Completely up to you. Here, this one uses 4 also, and these are mostly done with 2-inch strips simply because I seem to have a lot of 2-inch strips, but you could do 1.5-inch strips or 1 3/4 or 2.5 or 3, just depending on what your needs are. But they are all made with rectangular strips. This was a digital kit that I got, several years ago that I didn't use all the paper, and I apologize, I don't know who made this kit, but I inked the edges because I like inked edges and they stand out, but you don't have to. Here, this is just coffee dyed cardstock paper, right? And it's the same exact concept. I mean, you've got the same number of pockets and such. You just don't have the inked edges. And here it is. These are a little bit narrower. You can see, I think these are, like I said, 2 inches, but this is 1 3/4. So it gives you a little bit lower profile. And these I made 2-inch strips, and these I made 1/4 inch or 1 3/4 inch. So they're all the pockets are the same size, but you don't have to do that either. So these are a little bit narrow. I think these are 1 1/4, but the strips that I used for the horizontal placement or the horizontal weave are a little bit wider. So you can see I've got a narrower profile here, but a wider profile here, or a wider pocket. So you can alter it up depending on what you have and what you need. But this one, I took some piano roll and put it on coffee dyed tracing paper so that I could still get the effect of the piano roll without worrying about tearing the edges when I put something in or out of a pocket. So you've got options there. This one I have more, I think there's 6, so they're narrower pockets, but I used vellum. And I like the look because I don't care if things are always perfectly straight. In fact, sometimes I want them to not be, but vellum slides a lot. Most of them I glue. I give a little tack of glue before I start when I weave them, but with vellum that glue shows. So I didn't glue these first, so they were kind of wiggly, and so it's not straight. But if you were wanting to put this inside of an ephemera book, you have the same thing because there's a piece on the back, so you could lay this down in a book and you'd have a big pocket, but then you have small pockets as well. So some options. And here is another way that I did it. I was gifted this really pretty ribbon, a bunch of this, and I love it, but I wasn't 100% sure how I could use it other than wrapping around a book to close it, or laying it flat because it's really thin. Well, what I did is I had 2-inch strips of cardstock. I used just a tiny bit of glue stick, laid it down, put the ribbon directly on top of those strips because this is 2-inch wide ribbon, directly on top, and so it would hold it in place without showing because I used just a smidge of this. And then I sewed around each strip separately. So each strip, the bottom are vertical strips are all sewn around, and the sides or horizontal strips are all sewn around. And so it stayed put when I started weaving. And that just gives you another option. And here it is with pattern paper. Same idea. Again, this size works really well for me, so I use it quite a bit, but again, alter the size to suit your needs. So I could put this right in here, and it's too wide, certainly for a belly band, but I could make it narrower if I chose to. But I could glue it also in and just have a big tuck spot in the back. So that is what we are making. And what to put in it? Well, on the other one, the B one, I just have those little B tickets, but your options are open. You have lots and lots of choices. Here I've got a die cut and a little booklet. Somebody had asked me in one of my videos how I make these little booklets, and so I'll show that at the end of this. Super simple. It'll be a little quick project, but it'll be at the end. And this one's just same idea. This is from Tracy's new Simple Kits. Love the images on there. They're just stunning. And it went really well with this. So just an accordion writing bit to go on here. That one goes on the side. And, another die cut just because it fit the theme. And here's just a simple paper clip with a tag on top. The tag was from the Rachel and Bella collaboration, her recent kit of Welsh, I don't remember how to say it, Ateli? Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, her recent kit, just a leftover tag from that, and made it into a paper clip to put on the bottom. Now, on most of these, I made the sides or the horizontal pieces flush with the edge. I just trimmed them down and made them flush. Okay, that's just the back of it. This one I chose not to because I really liked the way the little polka dotty ribbon came off the edges, and this isn't going to show. And the reason I put this back here is so that the pockets don't catch on anything in the back, because when you weave, you've got that option or that opportunity to have things fall through or to catch. By putting it on a piece of scrap paper, and this is really thin copy paper, so it's not adding much bulk, I eliminate that. And I liked the way this looked, so I didn't trim my edges to make them straight. And that's another option too. You can completely make it work for what you want. And they're deliberately not the same size. I just kind of wove them and left them and then sewed around the whole thing. So the pockets are still within that rectangular parameter, but then these bits just kind of hang over at the edge. All right, enough talkity talk. Corey, show how it's done. One of the first things I do is get whatever strip size I've got. I think I haven't even cut these. Okay, we'll cut them together. Okay, we'll cut them together. I've got some leftover cardstock. You can do this also with regular copy paper, simply because they don't need to be super sturdy or strong, and you're going to have 2 layers. Again, this is just a bit of, I don't even know. So I'm going to have this piece be my vertical strips, maybe, and then this piece be my horizontal strips, I think. All right, and let's do it a little bit bigger. I think I might have enough. Let's see, how wide is this? 3 inches. So if I do 2 1/4, I may not have enough to stack the whole thing. So maybe I'll do 1 1/2 inch pockets. Sure, why not? So I'll do 1 1/2 inch pockets vertically, and let's do, this is almost 5 inches, so let's do 2 1/2 inch. Yeah, no rules. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 1/2 inch for my vertical pieces. Those are going to both be 2 1/2. Sure, I kind of like that. And then so these are 2 1/2 and 2 1/2. So my total width is 5 inches. So these strips that I'm cutting now need to be 5 inches wide. And I really hope this is 10 inches long. Yeah, it is. Good, because then I'll be able to get enough strips. So my total width for this is going to be 5 inches. So I want to cut these in just over 5 inch bits so that these are just over 5 inch. And I believe I have enough for both. Yeah, good. Okay. And then I'm going to cut them, because they're 3 inches wide and I want enough woven strips, I'm going to cut them into 1 1/2 inch pieces. So my pockets won't be super deep, but if I'm putting small ephemera in there, it's plenty. Corey, you ding dong. I did it 2, not 1 1/2. All right, well, plan B. We will have 3 pockets. I guess I could glue that together. I could tape it. There's no reason on earth I couldn't tape it. Maybe I'll do that. We'll see. We will see. Okay. Yeah. Or maybe this will just be a shorter pocket one, whatever. All right, these are my first bits. I apologize. Last one I had these inked up. I guess I don't have to ink it, but I won't use it if I don't ink it. So, and it's way, way, way easier to ink before you start. So deepest apologies if you don't like the sound of inking, but here you go. So at the end of the video, while I'm inking, I might as well share. At the end of the video, I collected the questions that I've received recently, and I will address those. I'll show you how to do the little paper square fold with a square bit of paper. It's in one of the books that I showed recently, and somebody asked how that was done. What I do with my cluster starts, again, super quick. Tim Holtz Trimmer Thoughts, how I do my spools for lace, that little mini book that I told you about, source for straw paper. Oh, I can talk about that while I'm inking. So a while ago, I asked my viewers for a source for straw paper. It was before my injury. And somebody told me, and I got it, the straw paper. And this, well, here, I'll reach over. This is the straw paper. Somebody gifted me a little bit, and then I got some more. I love it, but I don't remember where they said they got it. I know some people got it in Italy, but I didn't order this from Italy. So there is a source for straw paper, and if you happen to know what it is, please feel free to tuck it in the comment box below, and then the person who was asking me where I got my straw paper, I'll be able to give her an answer, because I wish I remembered, but I honestly don't. So I'll address that. Ink boxes. I've had a couple people ask about ink boxes, and I'm struggling a little bit with Etsy right now, simply because I did my taxes and I noticed that the fees on Etsy went up to an insane amount. So between the increased cost of postage and I know Etsy has the same, I'm not trying to pick on Etsy or anything, but it's just really spendy. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with those. I have ink boxes. Maybe I'll just sell them privately. I've got a bunch of the ones that seem to be the most popular, and then I have some of the 3-hole ink boxes, and then I have some of the two stations, one for the 3-inch ink pad and one for the 4-inch ink pad. So I've got some things. I don't really, did that go together like that? Yeah. I'm not 100% sure how I want to sell them. And so this is a way to fix this. It's not going to be perfect. And then I'll just, there's black in here, so I'll use black washi. I'm going to put the washi on the back to hold it in place, and then I'll put the washi on front to make it decorative. At least that's my plan. Because I do want to do 4 strips. And I could use a different paper. It doesn't have to be the same paper. You can mix and match paper, and this one would be a really good one. But I wanted to show you how I fixed my mistake. Okay, so you can see there, not perfect, and you can see that line. So do I like this? Sure, we'll use this size washi. Because a washi is meant to be temporary, and I want this to be permanent. I'll just put a thin line of glue right along that strip where I made the mistake. I'm going to put the nib back in because otherwise my glue will close up. And I realize I'm whispering under my breath. I apologize. I will stop that. So anyway, those things that I just talked about, I will address them quickly, briefly, at the end of the video. So people who just want to see the ladder pocket don't have to listen to that. I mean, not that anybody has to listen anyway, but you know what I mean. Is that straight? No, of course not. Why would it be straight? Okay, let's try that again. Okay, that's better. Great. So just a little bit different, but it'll still work. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, and maybe I'll put that one at the bottom just because it's really kind of cool. All right. Now that I've got my pieces set up, right, for my pocket, this is going to be 2.5 inches, so 5 inches wide, and these are much narrower, so it won't be as tall as the total page here. Well, you know what? Let's look. we're gonna do this on the fly. I probably should restart this video, but I'm not going to. I'm going to make this work. I do want to use the entire height, and I don't have enough of this paper, so what could I do? I don't care for that with it. I've got a bin here of my cardstock scraps, the pattern cardstock straps. Okay, say that 3 times fast. Oh, it's the same paper. Patterned cardstock scraps. And I can use these. Oh, that's kind of pretty. That's a different shade of blue, but it's still kind of pretty. And these are all leftover bits from various Tracy Fox kits, and I don't know off the top of my head. I don't like those together. I don't know off the top of my head which kits. Okay, I'll use this one. And I used sorry for hitting the camera there. I used 1 1/4 inch strips. So let's make this a little longer than 5. And this 1 1/4. Now realistically, I should, rather than alternating them, I should get another kind of paper, but I'm not going to. This is just a sample. I don't want to overthink this. All right, and now I have to ink these guys. Oh, sorry, what else can I talk about while I'm inking, so you don't have to listen to it? Tim Holtz trimmer. I'll pull it up in just a minute. But yes, I got the new trimmer, and I do like it. And the complaints are maybe complaints isn't the right word. The concerns that some folks have had, I haven't had, and I'll show you really super quickly why afterwards. But yes, I do recommend the Tim Holtz trimmer, and I have been pleased with the way it functions. It's also a lot narrower and smaller than my Dolly trimmers, and I'm going to keep those because they're metal and they're heavy, and I still like them. But this is just more convenient for pulling on and off my desk. When I was a scrapbooker, I had my paper trimmer on my desk all the time, but I find that I don't really need to do that here because I use my big trimmer as much. All right. Now, let's start weaving. But before we start weaving, I'm going to cut this background piece. And did I cut this already? Oh, no, I didn't, but it will work. It's a little wide, but that's okay. This is a little wide, not the paper. But when I'm gluing, I can just be careful to glue just the edges. Yeah, because you don't need much glue, honestly. And I only use glue to tack it into place. Now, do you have to sew it? No, you don't have to sew it. In fact, you can just glue the whole thing if you want. I just happen to like the way it looks when it's sewn around the edges. So that's what I do. All right, my 2 vertical strips. I'm going to glue 1 of my vertical strips. And it doesn't matter if you start on the right or the left or the top or the bottom. You know, do with a system that works best for you. I'm going to, because my background piece is a little bit narrower, I'm going to go over the edge a little bit here and lay that down just like that. Then I'm going to get one of my horizontal strips. I'm going to start with this one simply because I liked the way it looked. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue here and here to hold that in place. And I'm going to put that down, right? Making my first pocket. And now I'm going to grab my second vertical piece and I'm going to lay that on top, right next to it. So it's touching its partner. And I'll do the same type of thing with the glue. A little bit of glue here and good to go. And put that down. Okay. So I've just created, where's the ticket? I've just created a pocket here. And when I put my next piece, I'll have a pocket here. See? All right, so I'm going to alternate because, you know, why not? And this one is on top of this vertical piece. So my next one will be under, right? Oh, and actually, yeah, that'll work. It can be a little bit longer. No reason why it can't. And I'll just pay attention to where that stops right there. Yeah, like that. So I'll come put a tiny bit of glue there, just again to hold it into place and make sure it's where I want it to be. And a little bit of glue over here to hold it in place. Not much. And if you don't use glue, that's fine. It holds it pretty well. But I just kind of like the extra stability. So this one was on top. This one was underneath. And now I got to do another on top. A little bit of glue. paper goes here, and then I lift this piece and lay it underneath. And then I glue this to this, just again so it doesn't wiggle. Not absolutely essential, but I find that it's helpful. Now it needs to go under. I'll lift this up and put my horizontal piece down. And I'll put a little bit of glue here to hold it in place just to make sure it doesn't wiggle. And then the last one. I think this will, yeah, this will be the last one, and then I'll just cut it off at the top. Right, same idea. A little bit of glue here to hold it in place. I use the edge of the previous strip to make sure that my paper is straight, right? I line it up that way, and then I'm going to tuck it under. So I'm just basically weaving these pieces, one on top, one on bottom, one on top, one on bottom, all the way through. And that is honestly all there is to it. All right, now I've got my pockets, but I'm going to put a little bit of glue here. Let's see. Yeah, starting right there. I'm going to put a little bit of glue here so that my background piece stays on it. Because I made this, the scrap that I have was a little bit narrower than would normally be. I just want to make sure it stays right there. Okay, so there is my basis for my pockets. Now, before I sew it, I trim the edges. That helps me keep my sewing machine lines straight, because honestly, that's not a strength of mine. So I'm going to line this up right here and trim. And I will save those bits because they make great cluster pieces. And get that out of the way just because I don't like a mess on my desk. Don't do as great. All right, so I trimmed the top to make it even, and I'm going to trim the side. I'm going to use these bits to make sure the vertical piece to make sure that my horizontal pieces are straight and even. All right, trim that down. Give a little haircut to the bottom simply because this one piece is a little bit longer and I want them to be straight. And then the same thing on this side. This side is the side that I start with the weaving is usually pretty straight, but every once in a while it'll go over. And that's what this looks like before I sew it. Now, if you didn't want to sew it, this is a great time to glue all the bits down. You know, go underneath and tuck all the edges down, but I'm going to sew it. And I brought my machine here, and I think I've got it angled so that you can see. That was my goal with the camera lens. And I just sew all the way around the edges. And for those of you who don't like the machine, please, this is a great spot to mute. I've ruined the foot pedal on this machine. Well, I didn't ruin it. The outlet piece that holds it wore out. So I use the hand buttons on this. And for those who are interested, I don't remember if I said it on the last video or this one, so I apologize if it's a repeat. This is a Pfaff Passport 2.0. It is really more machine than I need for what I do. I don't do fancy stitches and such, but my mom had it and she upgraded to something else and she gave it to me several years ago, and it's worked great. It's been a really good machine. Again, it's more than you really need for sewing on paper unless you want to do fancy stitches, but I'm grateful for it because it's sturdy and I've been able to do thicker things with it, like leather, thinner leather, and denim and canvas and such with no problems. So there you go if you're looking for a machine. And mine was pre-owned. I don't think I've ever had a new sewing machine. I get my mom's hand-me-downs, which is a blessing. So my point is, you can find them on Facebook Marketplace and offer up and that kind of thing. A new machine is not essential if you're interested in sewing. So you can see I sewed all the way around, and then I would ink all the way around the edges because I've already inked these bits, and then I'm ready to put it in my journal and fill up my pockets with whatever I want. Now, if I wanted that to be a belly band, absolutely it could be a belly band, right? If I didn't want it to, I would just tuck a little bit of glue underneath here and sew it that way, or close it off that way. See? So you can see, honestly, with something like this, I tend to use solid colored pieces. Like if I were putting tags or booklets or reading things or what have you in here, I would use solid colored pieces. I did that upside down. There you go. because I wanted this black stripe at the top. And actually I could have put a black stripe there, but I actually kind of really like that. I think it's kind of cool. And I'll probably put a label or something on top of that to, you know, play it up or what have you. But that's how you do it. It's really and truly that simple. You can make it as wide and as narrow, and you can see here, these bits are narrower and these bits are wider, and it still works. Where did I put those pockets? See, these are the same size, these are narrower, and this long one, the side bits or the vertical bits were narrower and the horizontal bits were wider. So that's the opposite of this. So super versatile, super flexible. You can totally make it your own. All right, that is these woven ladder pocket. I'll go on to what I was telling you. This is the straw paper. I don't remember if I grabbed it. This is the straw paper I was talking about. This is the Tim Holtz trimmer I was talking about, the new one. And it has an arm to, well, it does, I'm sure. Yeah, so you can get longer than the 6 inches that are marked here. The one complaint I've heard about this trimmer is it's fabulous for thick paper, which is what it's designed to do, but it's not so great for thin paper. Well, this is the paper that I used to back the pocket. And it's copy paper. It's the thinnest, cheapest copy paper known to man. And I have found great success doing two things with this. Because this rolling handle is designed to fit thicker things, to get a good smooth cut on thin paper, you just have to push down. And I also find that this guide or arm, it's got a spring over here, so it can go up or down for thicker things, right? If I'm cutting just one thin piece of paper, I push this arm down, which it's designed to do, and I push this rolling bit down, which it's also designed to do, and I get a perfect cut, perfect, even, straight cut. So if you're just rolling it across, you're not going to get that effect. In fact, I've heard people say they get jaggedy edges, or, well, it worked there, but they get jaggedy edges and such because on thin paper. But push down, and if you're needing a trimmer or wanting a trimmer, this one is really a great trimmer. It's lightweight too, which is really nice. All right, that was that question. Little booklet. Let's make the little booklet. These are, you can use any tickets. Maybe I'll zoom in just a tiny bit there. You can use any tickets, any tags, whatever you want for the covers of your booklet, okay? It can be one solid piece, but if you don't have one solid piece, this is an alternative that may work well for you. I'm going to grab this tin because I put some pieces in there. All right, I took some offcuts of coffee dyed paper. They're not the same width. They're about the same length. I wanted to use these pieces for the cover because I thought they were pretty, and I put some Seth After Vintage Beeswax on top of that, just to give it a tiny bit of, I don't know, vintage color, I guess. And I like the way that turned out. So I'm going to use that as my front, and I'm going to use this as my back of my little booklet. So these are 2-inch square. So my book needs to be just a smidge under 2 inches high and just a smidge under 2 inches wide, which means my pieces have to be at least 4 inches, and these are all over 4 inches. So these are just scraps, various size scraps that I grabbed and put together, and then I folded them in half. And it's not perfect. You can see it's not really straight there and there. Folded it in half, made a crease. You can do a pamphlet stitch here, a 3-hole pamphlet stitch or a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. I like to use the sewing machine because it's fast and easy, and I like the sewing machine and I like the effect it gives. Plus, I'm lazy. I always have my sewing machine out, and it just takes seconds. And I think you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So the first thing I do when I'm sewing a seam like this is I extend the length of my stitch. So your stitches have two options. When you're doing like a zigzag, you have your width, and here you can see that shows you it goes wide. But here you have your length, the length of the amount of space between your stitches. And my machine goes up to, I think it's 4.5, and then it yells at me and says, no wider, Corey. So it's a wide stitch, and I usually use right around that for these little booklets. Play with your machine a little bit and on a scrap piece to see how far apart the stitches are. Then I've got my machine aligned with a center, red center. I think you can see it, maybe. And I use this crease in here and line it up with the red bit on my foot. Maybe you can't see that. I'm going to pull the whole table down. There you go. Now you can see that. Okay, good. Okay, so I line the center of my booklet where I folded it closed with the red line on my machine. Now I could set my machine to sew to the left or to the right of that, but I like it on that one, so I kind of leave it there. And I'm going to slow down my stitch a bit. And again, I have to use the hand pedals. And I just sew straight down that seam, and I'm done. I have a magnet on the side on the plastic for my sewing machine scissors, and I only use these for cutting the threads when I sew. That way they stay sharp, and I'm not tempted to use them for something else. And that's it. So you can see my little booklet's closed. Fast, easy. Pamphlet stitch works every bit as well. It's just I'm lazy. Now, when I fold this over, it's not going to be, okay, where did I put my, sorry, I'm reaching in my RV parking to get my cutting mat. Here we go. I need that for this. So now I'm going to fold this over and trim up my edges. So I'll get a straight edge, I'll get a ruler, and I want this to be just under 2 by 2. So I'll lay this on here. So here, I'll lay it down. And a lot of times what I'll do to make sure that I don't do something silly and move it while I'm cutting is I'll use a piece of low tack tape and put the low tack tape right there. And I'm going to line this up and trim away the excess. And a lot of times it'll take more than one pass because I want it straight. I don't mind. I mean, I could push harder and do it faster, but that works too. All right, so there is the width. And now let's see, I think this is over 4 inches it is. And I'm going to cut this on both sides simply because I wasn't careful or cautious to make it even. So I'm going to put that straight there, and I'm going to trim a bit off of both edges to make it fit my 4-inch parameter. Is this going to affect the sewing machine stitches? No, and you'll see why. I mean, yes, it'll cut a little bit of that off, but it's not going to affect the function of the booklet. And again, I'll do a couple passes to make sure it's straight and even. Okay, there's that. And then I'll flip it around and I'll go just under the 2-inch because my covers are 2 inches. So I'm going to have it just shy of that. Okay, I'm really shredding that. There we go. All right. You can use a paper trimmer, but I just find when I'm cutting something of this thickness, it's just a lot easier to have the pressure of a cutting mat and a straight edge. Personal preference, either works. That's one of the things I think I love most about this hobby is that we have choices. You know, we can do what works for us. It's not the same for everybody. All right, now I've got this seam, this sewn seam that's the back of my book, and I'm going to dry fit this. Yep, that's going to work. Well, you can see there I have a rough edge. And if I have a rough edge, a little bit of sandpaper. This isn't really sandpaper, it's an emery board. We'll take that off. Okay. So yes, it fits. So now what I'm going to do to cover that seam is I'm going to see where I put my washi. Sometimes the other one I used gold. This time I'm going to use black because I like the black with the bees. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the outside, which is where the back of my stitches are, and this is going to show in the back of the book. Put this on and place my washi. And again, this doesn't have to be 100% straight because it's going to be somewhat covered, but I do want it to be mostly straight. Did I make that long enough? Maybe not. Maybe I didn't make it long enough. All right, I'm whispering under my breath again. I apologize. I talk to myself when I'm creating. I know it's crazy, but I do. And so I get in the bad habit of whispering. Okay, and I'm a loud person as a general rule, so it's kind of a stray from the norm, essentially. As my husband calls it, cheerleader voice. All right, so there's my little booklet. Doesn't matter which is the front and back. I am going to now put these pieces on. I'm going to put my covers on. And that, you can see there, I was a little bit short, but not enough to make me concerned. I'll just put a little bit of ink there and call it good. And how about that? Yeah, I like that. See, so you can see that black washy, well, maybe you can see that black washy bit there, and then this bit here. I am going to use, this is thicker paper, so I'm going to use my art glitter glue, but if I were using thinner paper, I would just use glue stick and then maybe a little bit of art glitter glue at the edge. But I've got the thicker paper, it's not going to show, it's not going to warp, and I want it to stay down pretty well, so a little art glitter glue. The words go that way. I want to make sure, because there's a sideways B, I want to make sure my words are oriented correctly. And that it's on straight, and so I'll open it up on the inside to make sure that it's straight. And it is. And now I'll do the same thing with my back cover. Is that back cover going to cover that up? You know what? It's not. So watch. See? Made a mistake. Didn't make it wide enough. Put a little more glue and a little more washi. It's not going to show. I mean, the seam isn't going to show. And I don't have to worry about my pieces matching up. So, way to fix just about anything. I'll just overlap that a bit to make sure it's covered. And boom. Problem solved. That's going to fold and crease like a cover would, so they're not going to show. And I will trim that down. Okay, this was supposed to be super quick. How did I turn something super quick into something that wasn't super quick? Anyway, if you're still with me, I apologize. So much for super quick. But it's a fun way to make a little booklet. And put glue around the edges, and I'll just put it on the edge too. There you go. To make this close. No. And then I'll line up my back cover with my front cover. I don't line it up with the pages as much. I try to line it up with the cover to make sure that they are the same. And push down on that a bit. See, you really can't see where I made my repair at all. Even when you come up close, you really can't see it. And there is our little booklet. There's a gap there, so it folds and lays flat nicely because it's not just folded over cardstock. And it almost looks like it has a bit of a spine. That, and I'll zoom back in a little bit, and that is how you make one of these little itty bitty booklets. All right, so booklet, Trimholtz trimmer, square fold. All right, and I don't remember which journal it was. Oh, it was in this journal. It was in this journal. I showed this piece, and somebody asked how to make this little square fold, and it's so easy, and it's one of my favorites, so I don't mind showing. I mean, I would have shown anyway, but I really don't mind. Square piece. Doesn't matter what size your square is. The bigger your square, obviously, the bigger your envelope. I think this one's about 4 inches, 4 1/4, whatever it is. About 4 inches, but you can certainly do bigger, and you can do a little bit smaller. Corner, you've got a square. You've got opposite corner to opposite corner. So I'm going to turn it in a diamond angle, right? And I'm going to use opposite corners and match those up and crease them down. So I've created a triangle from my square, right? Created a triangle from my square. Then I'm going to take either my right or my left arm of my triangle, right? I've got my long straight edge on the bottom, right? I've got my long straight edge or segment, line segment on the bottom. If you're a math person, that's a line segment. I'm just going to give it a little bit of ink. Line segment on the bottom. I'm going to fold it over just past halfway. I'm going to take one of the bottom, either right or left corner, and fold it over just past halfway. I mean, I don't know, a smidge. You can do more or less depending on how wide you want it to be, but just a smidge past halfway. And then I'm going to take the opposite corner and do the same thing, but I want these corners to be straight. I want them to line up at the same point to give me symmetry. So I use my grid personal preference, use my grid to make sure that the points are at the same space. And then I just fold it over. Okay, so it looks like this, almost like a diaper. And then one piece will tuck into the other piece. And again, it doesn't really matter. I can tuck the right piece or I can tuck the left piece. I usually tuck the right piece simply because I'm right-handed, and it's a little easier to get that stinker in there. There we go. Well, no, see? There, okay? So it works either way. Then you take these top pieces and fold those down in the remaining triangular section. Fold, and it's just that simple. You've got a little tiny mini envelope writing space, so for private writing or whatever, and you tuck it inside your pocket. And this finished piece with a 4 1/4 inch square is 2.5 by 1 3/4. That was the end dimension. So if you're wanting something larger than that, use a bigger square. If you need it a little bit narrower, bring your folds in a bit more. So really flexible, you can play with that. Square fold, cluster starts. All right, somebody asked about cluster starts. And last time I visited my granddaughter, I had started these. I had a couple pieces of paper and I just started tearing, and you can see they're super basic. I think I cut some with scissors, but they're super, super, super basic. Just random bits of paper, different lengths, different widths, glued together. Here, I'll leave one of these out here, or maybe two. So I'll have a bunch of those. And then I'll come and do my next step, and I'll pick little bits. I mean, maybe I'll ink it at this point. You know, I like ink, so maybe I'll ink some of these edges. And then I'll use my little itty bitty drawer of scrap bits and think, what do I have and what do I want to go on here? So here's a little bit. Oh, do I like that? Nah, the color's not right, or it's not white enough, or what have you. So I'll play with these. Oh, denim. Denim might look really cool on here. Nah, maybe not denim. Maybe denim. I don't know. And then maybe denim needs something else. So maybe I'll do a little bit of this lace, but I want that print to show, and maybe a little bit of denim. And yeah, sure, something like that. And then I will sew these pieces down, and I'll do that all in a row with my scrap bits and all of these things. So I'll add fabric and or lace and glue them all down. Then the last step for me is I'll get the embellishments or pieces for the top. Here is a birdie, Tracy Fox Digital Fussy Cut Birds, and a couple of labels, and you can see the bit of lace back there. And I just sewed it on top. This one, same idea. I added a piece of black cardstock because I wanted the contrast. I added that when I put the lace on, and then I used one of the Tim Holtz images, but lots of people have them, and then a flower and a label. And that's how I finished them off. So there's my cluster process. You know, a lot of times I had a whole sheet of paper with these because I was at my granddaughter's and we were crafting together. So she likes to tear paper and glue it, and so Oma did too. But I'll just use I'll pull out my scrap bins and just start combining pieces. And a lot of times I don't necessarily love the way they look when I first do that, but then I alter them and add more interest as I'm adding these little scrap bits of lace and then whatever image is going on top. Happy mail sending bits. Oh, I know what I was going to do. Okay, so I did the Tracy Fox swap where we did the Mass Makes in March, and then I put together bits for my swap partner, packaging them up. So in the U.S. Postal Service, if you bulk it this way and make it uneven this way, they'll charge you for a package, which is, I don't know, $5, $7, $9, just depending on the package. It's a bit spendy. If you make it a large envelope, if you make it more uniform in thickness and size, and you can fit it in an envelope, and it's a little bit flexible, then they only charge you for a large letter, which is $1.30 up to whatever based on the weight. So when I'm sending things like that, I try to be careful to put it in a card format, so I'm not paying a few extra, $3 or $4 or even $5 extra for something that's essentially a card. So I'll make a card to put the bits in. And here I just added a cluster to the top just to make it pretty. And actually that's one of those cluster bits from the stack I just showed you. I added 2 different pieces of lace, and then I put a birdie on top, a Tracy label, and a bit of the faux cellophane. It's faux aged cellophane tape. It's real cellophane tape, but it's faux aged. And then I used a bit on top. So I made a side tuck for the journaling card that I was going to send, that I'm sending her. And I just held that in with some transparency, sewed some transparency on in a paper clip. And then I had some smaller bits, so I put washi in. I had this leftover paper, which is on copy paper, so it's thin. I laid it down flat, and I put a piece of washi in the middle. And then I had these card bits that I had sewn on to make the inside edge. So I did that, sewed that, and then glued it down. And then the same thing here. I was wanting some little pockets, so I used an insert and put the pocket with the label on the front, and that's inside that pocket. And then I put a strip to make a belly band so that this fold over journaling spot would fit in, and then this paper clip, side pocket paper clip. This is just paper clipped on there so that she can take it out and use it. And then the same idea, I just I created a hole at the top and hung this dangle that I had created for her in there. So it's going to lay much flatter, and I'll be able to send this as a large envelope rather than a package. And then in the back, this is one of the videos that Julie from Camellia Craft Designs did on making little folders. And I absolutely love these. I could sit for hours and do these. They're just a lot of fun, and they're quick and very satisfying way to use up some paper. And then I also love these, and I did this on one of my mass make videos. So I grabbed a piece that I did there and I filled it. Here is that fold that I just showed you inside the vellum pocket, or the tracing paper pocket. I used one of the little slide mounts I made and added a decorative piece on here with a flip down journaling piece, right? I just used the tab at the top to hold that in place, and then I'll just tuck that inside there. And then there's a journaling tag in the back pocket. Then when this gets glued down in the book, right, you'd glue it down on 3 sides, which creates a pocket. And then here's just a little booklet done in that same manner without the front cover to go in the back. And it is fairly uniform, right? It's fairly thin. I can now mail this as a large envelope as opposed to a package. Saves a little bit of money. Happy Mail, Request for Mini Book did that. Straw paper did that. Ink boxes. I think I talked about ink boxes. Maybe I talked about ink boxes in the last video. So I apologize if I've already done it. The fees on Etsy have gone to insane levels as it has postage, so I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to do it. I have a whole bunch of ink boxes out in the garage, and send me a private email and we'll talk, because I do have them available, and I use mine, so I know that other people would like to use theirs. Lace spool. Somebody asked about how I get and store these. So when I go to an antique mall or an auction or estate sale or what have you, and I don't go very often, I'll look for spools. This one is a longer one, so let's see, this is what, 10 inches or so. Some of them are shorter. In different areas you find it different spools. My standard, like for a spool this size, I'll pay about $10. Some places will charge you insane amounts more, $30, $40. Other places I can get them for $5. It's just a matter of who's pricing what. But my rule of thumb for this size is about $10. And I think I paid $7 for this one. So just as a guideline. If it's really unique or really interesting or something that's totally different I haven't seen, I'll pay a little bit more, but not much more, because you can get them for this price. And then the lace, what I do is I'll take, to put the lace on, I just take a strip of, double-sided glue. I'll put a strip of double-sided glue down, peel off the backing, roll my lace, and then tuck it with a pin. Personal preference, that's how I like to do it, and that's, somebody asked, so there you go. Thank you. I can't believe I almost forgot it. I had it first in the other video. I received some Happy Mail recently from Happy Mail and cards and such from Donna and Wendy and Pat and Gail and Tammy and Tracy. And deep, sincere, heartfelt thank yous to you. You really made a difference. You made a positive difference, and I appreciate that. I've had a couple requests for these little journals. This was a Tim Holtz when I did this a while ago, but I've had a couple people request how I made it in the process. So coming very, very soon will be, it's a single signature journal. Coming very, very soon, I will show how I made these. We'll do it, maybe it won't be a single video because that would be too long, and I'm sure this is getting too long as well. But maybe a couple videos showing, maybe a video showing how I make it, and another showing how I choose the pockets or tucks or whatever that's going in, and maybe a video showing how we make those. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm happy to revisit that because I love making little ones. And this was a little bit different simply because of the closure and the materials that I had and used. So that will be coming up. My goal, hope, is to do one video a week, but I certainly can't promise that. I do have another procedure that's going to happen, and I just don't know when yet. So there you go. Thank you all very much. If you lasted this long, you're a diehard, and I appreciate you. Take care, everyone. I hope you're well and happy creating to you.